Well, this is Dateline News and Conversation. Tonight, we've got both news and conversation. We're going to talk about Lebanon, what's going on there, who's behind it. We're going to talk about Donald Trump. He's boasting that he's going to sign a deal with Iran today, uh, June 14th, 2026. We're going to talk about whether Iran says he's got a deal. And then we're going to talk about the genocidal entity, Netanyahu. Seems that Trump has left him out in the cold. Whoa, what could be the consequences of that? And then we're going to talk about Trump. He's been saying he's close to a deal in Ukraine. He promised that for over a year. Well, we're going to talk about all of this tonight with my guest, my friend, Dimitri Lascaris. Dimitri, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, brother. Great to see you again.
Always. Okay. You just returned from a week in Lebanon. I watched your reports from Lebanon. You have been in the war zone more than once. You've been to Iran recently. You've been to Palestine, Gaza. And just recently, you spent a week in Lebanon. Let's start with that. For our viewers, tell me what it was like, for one, because you were in very dangerous territory. But second of all, tell me how bad it's been. How bad the bombing, indiscriminate bombing, destroying entire villages and cities, just like they did in Gaza and Palestine. What was it like? And, well, I'll just leave it at that. What was it like?
Well, I was there for a week. I left, I arrived on the 6th of June and left about a week later. And I was based in Beirut throughout that time, but the days were spent in the south, along the coast and in the interior, about 20 kilometers from the border of Israel. And I think the closest we might have been was about 15 kilometers from the border of Israel. And I spent also a good bit of time in the Bekaa Valley, which is in the east. These two areas, the Bekaa Valley and the south of Lebanon, are the areas where there are the highest concentrations of Shia Muslims, who are the primary supporters of Hezbollah, but by no means the only supporters. There are also Christians who support Hezbollah. There are Sunni Muslims who support Hezbollah. There are secular Lebanese who support Hezbollah, because it is a legitimate resistance group and the most effective one in Lebanon, I think it's fair to say. So because these are the areas where Hezbollah has the strongest level of support, Israel has been particularly sadistic in attacking these areas. The trip that I just took was the 6th trip to the south and east of Lebanon in the last 2.5 years of genocide. My first one during the genocide was just a few days after it all began in October. It was about October 11th, 2023. And I've gone back on average twice a year since then. And what I've seen, Regis, and this is certainly true of this trip, is that progressively the level of destruction has gotten worse and worse over time. So when I first went there, I was able to go right up to the Israeli border, maybe a kilometer away. And I could, so close that I could see Israeli settlements and military bases on the other side of the border. That's no longer possible. It's just simply too dangerous. You can't get that close to the border without basically committing suicide. So as I said, the closest I can get is maybe like 10 kilometers. And even that is very dicey. Secondly, the level of destruction is far worse now than what I first saw in the early days of this conflict in October 2023. There are a lot of villages in the south that have been almost entirely leveled to the ground. I saw this, in a village called Kfar Kila, which sits about a kilometer from the Israeli border. This was February of last year. And on this trip, the deepest I was able to get was the cities of Sur on the coast, which is about 20 kilometers away, and Nabatea, which I think is about 15 kilometers away. And both of them were heavily damaged, far worse than what I had seen. They hadn't been leveled to the ground. They're big cities, relatively speaking. Sur is 200,000, and Nabatea is 120,000. So it would take quite a bit of firepower for Israel to level them to the ground. But I don't think there should be any doubt that that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to render even those cities uninhabitable. And something else that has changed is that Israel has more recently systematically targeted emergency workers in Lebanon. It wasn't doing that. It was still occasionally killing them, but now it's just literally trying to exterminate them all. And I spoke to emergency workers there who had lost family members and colleagues in the last few weeks. So what I add it all up, and I say this, Regis, as a lawyer, because that is my first and primary profession, and I've been practicing for over 30 years, and I've spent a good deal of time devoting my efforts to international humanitarian law. And I have no doubt that Israel is committing genocide in Lebanon. I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago, or maybe even a year ago, but now I think the evidence is overwhelming that it is committing genocide, not only in Palestine, but also in Lebanon. And it probably would expand it from there if it were given the weapons to do so, because it's never been held accountable meaningfully for any of its crimes. The message which the West has sent to Israel is you literally have a license to kill anybody. You can even kill our own citizens. You can even rape our own citizens. There were people from Western countries on the flotilla, the Gaza flotilla, a few weeks ago, who were sexually assaulted. Israel hasn't been held accountable by Western governments for that. So why wouldn't these monsters expand their genocide when they're being given a green light to do that?
Wow, that's pretty depressing. What bothers me, Dimitri, is over the past few years, Israel has not been held accountable by anybody in the world, the entire world, for the genocide that they've been inflicting on the Palestinians. Now you're telling me that it's genocide on Lebanon, and yet the rest of the world keeps silent.
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far. I think the axis of resistance has held Israel accountable.
Okay.
Iran, Hezbollah, the Palestinian resistance groups, Ansar Allah, the Iraqi popular militias, and given the limited means at their disposal, I think they've done a heroic job of holding Israel accountable. They've imposed very, very severe costs on Israel and its main benefactor, the United States. So much so that I think Israel's military is on the verge of collapse. Whoa. But there's no Western government that has meaningfully held Israel accountable. No.
You just said you felt that the Israeli military was on the verge of collapse. Yeah. Dimitri, that's the first time I've ever heard anybody say that. What do you base that on?
That based on statements of Israeli military leaders. There is a crisis of PTSD and suicide. There is a huge crisis of reservists refusing to show up for duty. Tens of thousands of them, perhaps in excess of 100,000 now, refusing to show up for duty. They've lost a huge amount of material and munitions. Just in the past 2 months, Hezbollah has published, I think, in excess of 10, maybe in excess of 15 videos of them taking out Iron Dome launchers. They've lost hundreds of armored vehicles in South Lebanon just in the past 2 months. Their air defense systems are depleted. There's a huge crisis of morale. People are fed up constantly having to show up for military service. And what do they have to show for it? But they have to show for it. I mean, this is part of the reason why the morale in the Israeli military is so low. They haven't defeated Hezbollah. They haven't disarmed Hamas. Iran handed Israel's ass to it. What have they accomplished with all this bloodshed and all the soldiers that they have lost? There's something like I think the last number I saw was 25,000 soldiers are disabled in the Israeli military. This is not a huge army. It's a relatively small army that was built for short-term wars. So I think the Israeli military is in a world of pain, and I don't think they can sustain this much longer.
Dimitri, last year we had several conversations in which you stated that you felt Israel was not going to survive as a country, that their economy was in collapse. Now, you've added a double barrel to this. Do you still feel that Israel is up against the wall in terms of its survival?
Absolutely, absolutely. Just look at the polls. Israel is the most despised. These are Western organizations doing polls. It's the most despised country in the world. In the West, the most recent poll I saw on favorability ratings for Israel was that in basically every single Western country, anywhere from 60 to 80% of the population had an unfavorable view of Israel. And so when the West, the ordinary voters in the West are feeling overwhelmingly negative about Israel, the Western government policy of unqualified support for Israel is doomed. And without Western government support, Israel is doomed. This little pipsqueak of a country could never get away with what it does, and with remaining structured in the apartheid system that they have, without massive support from the West. And I think this is one of the reasons why they're going hog wild right now, because they realize that with Trump in office, this is their last chance to establish the project of Greater Israel, and it's all downhill from there.
Okay, you know where I'm going to go with this next question. It's a topic of conversation. It's on so many people's minds. Israel, as you refer to it, the genocidal entity, has nuclear weapons. Everybody knows it. It's undeclared by Israel, but everybody knows it. The question is, being so desperate, would they resort to using their nukes on who? On Iran? On Lebanon? On Iraq? Mm-hmm. Dimitri, what are your thoughts?
I don't think they would do it in Lebanon, because they would be severely affected by the nuclear fallout. Lebanon is too close, but they might very well do it to Iran. Now, in order for them to actually, the problem they have there, and I don't think anybody should underestimate the risk of Israel doing this. I think this is the greatest risk, the greatest danger that we're going to see in the use of nuclear weapons is Israel versus Iran. As a serious risk, I think it's much higher risk than even the threat of nuclear war in the Cuban Missile Crisis, because these people are criminally insane, the leaders of Israel, and they will stop at nothing. But I still think that they are going to pause long and hard before going down that path, because there still is a risk, if they use the weapons massively, that they would end up contaminating their own country. Iran could, and I know they understand this at this stage, Iran could quickly develop a nuclear weapon and strike back. They have 60% enriched uranium. They have nuclear facilities deep underground. Even the nuclear blast probably could not affect some of those facilities. They're deep under granite rock. So Iran might very well strike back. And Israel's a very small country. It wouldn't take more than 2 or 3, atomic weapons to basically obliterate most of the population of Israel. So they would have to be worried about that. And of course, their international standing has already been devastated. And if they resorted to nuclear war, the world might finally say, we've had enough, and impose crushing sanctions on Israel. So I don't think it's inevitable that they use nuclear weapons, but they are crazy enough to do it. And I do think they're getting desperate.
You know, one of the more prominent uh, analysts, experts from the United States, the former CIA analyst Larry Johnson, came out last week and emphatically declared from his sources that Iran had a nuclear missile. Do you believe that?
I believe it's possible. But as Larry, I heard Larry describe what his sources had told him. They also spoke to, I believe, Pepe Escobar, the same source. And the thing is, according to what, as I recall, what Pepe and Larry said they were told by this source, who apparently is in the Pakistani government, is that if Iran was attacked again, it would demonstrate its possession of a nuclear weapon by exploding a nuclear munition somewhere inside Iran. It would do a demonstration explosion. Well, it was attacked again, twice, 2 or 3 times, by Israel and by the United States since Larry said that, and it has not yet done that. So, based on that, I have doubts. I'm sure that Larry and Pepe are accurately reporting what they were told, but I have doubts about whether their source is either telling the truth or has his facts straight. But we'll see. You know, after what happened today, Regis, I don't know if you're aware of this, but just a few hours ago, Israel struck Beirut again, which this is what precipitated the last attack by Iran on Israel about a week ago. And so they did it again. And they apparently, my colleague Rami Yahya, who's a correspondent for Reason to Resist, is in Beirut, and he went to the site of the blast, and he said that they killed 3 civilians, including 2 elderly people. And as soon as this happened, the Israeli senior Iranian figures said the negotiations are off for now, and the Israeli press is reporting that Israel is bracing for further strikes from Iran. And I think they have good reason to brace for further strikes from Iran, because this is a red line, and the last time they crossed it, Iran struck them hard. So maybe we're going to see a demonstration explosion of a nuclear weapon in Iran in the next couple of days. That's entirely possible. It hasn't happened yet. So I'm not sure whether this story is accurate.
All right, here's where we need to go next. That creature in Washington, I hesitate to mention his name, number 47. I cannot stand to look at him anymore. It's been a long time. I cannot stand to listen to him, but he was out bragging again that he was going to sign a deal today, June 14th, Sunday, that was going to end the war with Iran. And Iran said, wait a second, not so fast. Dimitri, bring me and bring us up to date.
Well, this agreement, I just did a live stream myself in which I went through in considerable detail the reports from the Iranian media about what is in the agreement. So first of all, the agreement is not finalized. That's clear. Secondly, the points that remain outstanding are significant. Thirdly, the reports that have come out about this agreement are eliciting a significant backlash inside Iran. There are protests that are happening against the agreement. The deputy chairman of the National Security Committee from the Parliament National Security Committee just gave a lengthy interview on Iranian media in which he critiqued the agreement forcefully. Other respected commentators in Iran, like Dr. Fouad Izadi, whom I've interviewed before, have come out and condemned the agreement, said don't sign it. So, and then came the strike today on Beirut. I think the negotiations are now in a shambles. I don't know whether they're going to be revived, and if they are revived, when they will be revived. But you can basically flush down the toilet the idea that there's going to be an agreement signed today. That was always a pipe dream. The Iranians were denying it, as you mentioned. it may be that there's going to be no further negotiation at all between the United States and Iran for weeks, perhaps even months, as a result of what happened today. We'll have to see how the Iranians react. But I think there's a high risk that they're going to strike Israel tonight.
Wow. Now, it's been very clear. I think that Iran has insisted that the ceasefire include Lebanon. And Israel has consistently broken that. And you just mentioned they did it again today. The motivation, Dimitri, I don't know, was it to tell Trump to shove it? I mean, it's never going to end. I want to rephrase this. Israel could never agree to that memorandum of understanding, the conditions that Iran placed there, including a complete ceasefire. What are your thoughts about Israel and why they're going to why they did this today, why they're doing it, and what's the motivation?
Well, the motivation is they want to destroy Iran. They've been very clear about that, and they're going to do everything they can possibly do to achieve that goal. They can't do it without the United States unless they resort to nukes, and that is highly problematic for Israel for the reasons I've already discussed. So they don't want a peace deal, and they're going to do everything they can to destroy any prospects of a peace deal. But I think, frankly, neither does number 47. You know, the madman in the White House, I don't think he wants a peace deal either. I think this is all kabuki theater. The idea that I know a lot of people are going to jump to the conclusion right away that Netanyahu did this without giving Trump a heads up. And, basically Trump is infuriated, and you've already seen reports along these lines in the press. He's very upset. But Trump put out a statement after this attack was carried out, and I'm going to read it to you. Okay, this is what Trump said after this highly provocative attack. This morning's attack on Beirut should not have happened, particularly on a special day when we are so close to a peace deal with Iran. Israel has the right to defend itself against threats, but the attack it was responding to was very small and meaningless. Nobody was hurt, injured, or killed, and should not disrupt this important process. We are very close to a deal that will bring peace to the region, including to Lebanon. All sides should stand down. There should be no more attacks by Israel anywhere in Lebanon, but there should also be no more attacks by any other party, including Hezbollah, against Israel. This could be the beginning of a long and beautiful peace. So what he's basically doing, that is not anger, okay? He's basically chastising Israel very politely, and at the same time, he's justifying what they're doing. And this idea that he's basically saying that Israel has a right to respond if Hezbollah attacks Israel. But it is Israel that is occupying Lebanon, and Israel refuses to take its soldiers out of Lebanon. So Hezbollah has every right to attack Israeli troops and to attack its supply lines inside Israel that is occupying Lebanon. So to say to the Lebanese resistance, you stop attacking Israel and Israel will stop attacking you, is grotesquely unfair, because it would leave Israel in control of large swaths of Lebanon. If Trump is serious about peace, what he would be saying is this. He would be saying, you both have to stop shooting each other, and Israel must withdraw from Lebanon immediately. And on its way out, it doesn't get to destroy anything and leave nothing but a wasteland behind it. That's what he would be saying if he were serious about peace. But instead, he's saying, you stop attacking Israel, Hezbollah, and I'll make sure that Israel doesn't attack you. And in the meantime, Israel can continue to illegally occupy Lebanese territory. That's not a serious endeavor to achieve peace.
Well, from what I've read, the Iranians simply do not trust Donald Trump. He's betrayed them twice just this year, entered negotiations and then started bombing them. They know his track record. The Iranians are incredibly bright, well educated, well informed, astute geopolitical players and analysts. And they've got Trump sized up, they've got the United States sized up. You and I both know that the United States cannot be trusted. My God, the negotiations with Russia. If Trump were half serious in wanting peace, he could have done a couple of major things. One, started reducing the sanctions on Russia. Number two, agreeing, and he said he agreed to Russia's security needs. Well, that's a lot of bullshit because he hasn't removed NATO or NATO weapons and nuclear weapons 1 inch back to the West. He's done nothing to show Russia that he's trustworthy. And when you combine the two, Iran and Russia, why would either of those two countries even want to enter into negotiations with him? And so, Dmitry, this is the question I have for you. Why would Iran even want to begin negotiations again with Donald Trump in the United States?
Well, I actually don't fault them for talking to the United States. I don't know the agreement or the draft agreement that appears to be on the table. There's been no official publication of this draft. It's just been various reports that have revealed bits and pieces of it. But based on what I know about this agreement, it's not one that I would sign if I were Iranian leader, except under one circumstance. I would sign the agreement that it appears to be on the table if the Iranian economy were on the verge of collapse and it was absolutely imperative that we got the blockade lifted, because the agreement does envision the lifting of the blockade, the U.S. blockade on Iran, pretty much immediately. So it may be that the economy is hurting so badly that that's their number one priority, and that's why they're going to do this deal. But if that's not the case, if they can continue down this path for several months without their economy collapsing, I would maintain pressure on Trump before entering into any kind of a deal, especially as the midterms approach in the United States. So that's my view about the agreement that's on the table. But whether they should be talking to the United States is a different question. I think they should talk to the United States for a few reasons. Number one, you never know when these people might actually get religion in the White House, in the Pentagon, and realize that they need to bring an end to this war. So even if there's only a 5% chance, even if there's just a 1% chance that they might actually be willing to be reasonable, you should talk to them. It doesn't cost you anything to talk to them, at least, especially if all you're doing is sending messages back and forth through mediators, and you're not even meeting with them. And secondly, the war, if it continues and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz continues, is going to cause a lot of economic pain all around the world. And a lot of people are going to be angry about this. And I think that the Iranians want the whole world to know that they are willing to talk to the Americans, so that when the anger materializes, they aren't going to be the primary objects of that anger. They want the Americans to be blamed for it. It is the Americans' fault. They don't want to be seen to be intransigent. So I for that reason also, I don't fault them for talking. And then there's domestic political considerations. There's people inside Iran who want their government to leave no stone unturned in terms of trying to find a negotiated resolution, because war is such a horrible thing. So talking to them is fine, but giving up control of the Strait of Hormuz without massive concessions from the United States, that's not something that I would do.
Well, I agree with you. And since you brought up the Straits of Hormuz, basically they're shut. the global supply chain has been already seriously disrupted. Inflation has doubled in the United States. The prices of goods are rising sharply, from gas to food to basic necessities. It's happening all over Europe. It's been happening, but it's intensifying. Uh, I think that um, they have a chokehold on Donald Trump in the United States, and but the risk is, Dimitri, and I want your thoughts on this. This could lead to very soon, very quickly, a global depression and famine in many parts of the world. Do you agree? Do you think I'm really really out on a limb here?
No, not at all. I mean, there are experts in the field who have warned about this. The amount of fertilizer that typically comes out of the Persian Gulf is enormous. The world relies on the Persian Gulf for fertilizer imports to an extraordinary degree, and they've been almost entirely cut off, as has sulfur. So, no, and of course, you require the consumption of considerable amounts of fossil fuels in order to produce food. You got to run your tractors. You got to run your trucks, your delivery trucks, your greenhouses. All of this requires the energy, the consumption of energy, which is largely provided by the burning of fossil fuels. So, any way you look at it, the price of food is going up, and it's going to skyrocket further if this does not come to an end soon and the strait is not completely reopened. But this goes back to what we were saying, what I was saying a few minutes ago. Precisely because this is likely to be one of the disastrous consequences of this war, famine. It's obligatory on the part of the Iranian government to at least keep open lines of communication with the enemy. If they shut off those lines of communication, all the innocent people around the world who are going to suffer as a result of this are not going to be happy with Iran.
Wow, one hell of a situation. Uh, I read today that somebody said that this was the most serious mistake that Trump has made in both of his terms, and I have to agree. Let me ask you this: um, he supposedly cursed at Bibi Netanyahu, and I'm not going to repeat the profanity, but now that he's said this deal is on the table and I'm going to sign it on Sunday, Netanyahu's reaction was he bombed Beirut today. But Dimitri, everybody's been talking about this, the Epstein files. Does Netanyahu have something on Trump? And if he does, then I have to agree with you. What we're witnessing now is all kabuki theater. Your thoughts?
I don't know the definitive answer to that question, Regis, but it's certainly possible. Trump had decades-long dealings with that depraved pedophile. Considered him a close friend. At one point, mused humorously about how Epstein had an obsession with very young females. Trump himself, there are photographs with him of very young females. I would be shocked if Donald Trump is not a pedophile. I'd be shocked. And why would anybody doubt that? He's a mass murderer of children. That's exactly what he's enabled Netanyahu to do. And he himself was in command of the U.S. military when it bombed the Minab school in Iran and massacred 168 children and school teachers. So if you're willing to mass murder children or enable other people to do that, why would anybody have doubt that that person is capable of sexually assaulting female minors? So Does that mean he is a pedophile? Not necessarily. He's perfectly capable of being one, and he was a notorious close friend of one. And as we know, Epstein had very extensive dealings with Israeli intelligence and the Israeli government. Ehud Barak, the former Israeli prime minister and a top intelligence official within Israel, stayed at Epstein's house in Manhattan and stayed at his island, Epstein Island. And Barak's right-hand man, his chief of staff, I think it was, also spent prolonged periods at Epstein's house in Manhattan. So, and everybody knows, it's well documented, that Epstein had cameras, video cameras, secret cameras all over his residences, and was keeping, had mountains of recordings of, whatever depraved activities were going on inside his house. So there's every possibility that they have compromat, the Israeli government has compromat on Trump. But I don't think they have to have that compromat in order for Trump to go down the path that he's gone. Trump is a genocidal maniac. He always has been one. He's been talking about destroying Iran for a long time, well before he entered the White House. And he is, his record, whatever he may say about wanting peace, his record is that of a bloodthirsty neocon. And it has always been the dream of the neocons to destroy Iran. They even talked about this inside the Bush administration. I think it was Dick Cheney who said, boys go to Baghdad, real men go to Tehran. So do they have blackmail material on Trump? Entirely possible. But I don't think they would have to have blackmail material on him for him to do this insanity, of trying to destroy Iran.
Well, still on the topic of Trump, if I'm not mistaken, Dimitri, isn't today his 80th birthday?
That's probably the least important thing in my world, Donald Trump's birthday, but I hadn't heard that before. Let me do a quick check.
Yeah, and
June 14th. Yes, it is. It's
the reason I wanted to do that, when you said that he was bloodthirsty, I've been seeing video and photographs of this this cage for fighters with thousands of seats on the south lawn of the White House to celebrate his birthday. Was going to be, I don't know what you call this, cage fighting, blood, and the people that are going to be there. I don't know of any civilized person that would show up for that, but there's an awful lot of people that love this bloodthirst, these cage fighting things where one guy beats the crap out of the other guy until he can't get up anymore. This is what I heard was today, his birthday. He wanted to celebrate it with this cage fighting, which he's a big fan of, and he wanted to celebrate it by signing this deal. Did you find anything? I know that his birthday is either today or it's coming.
It is today. Yes, and he celebrated it. I'm just looking at a report from the Associated Press with a cage fighting show on the south lawn of the White House. Look at this, my God! He's a bloodthirsty madman. Why anybody would think that this freak could, bring to an end this war? I don't know. I don't know why anybody would. Again, I'm not suggesting that the Iranians should stop talking to the U.S. government, but I do believe that any deal they do with him is doomed.
I agree with you. For so many reasons, they need to keep talking, but they're not going to sign this deal. I agree with you 100%. There's no way they could. And the thing about Trump, Dimitri, that drives me crazy. I can understand why Americans are Russophobic. I can understand why Americans believe they're exceptional. the indispensable nation. Nobody less than Barack Obama declared that at the United Nations and at a graduation speech at West Point. I have those video clips. I've looked at them and I've played them over and over again. They're in one of my movies. I can understand how Americans are brainwashed about their exceptionalism and their Russophobia. Dimitri, what I can't understand is how any of these Americans who are well educated, who go to church, who have families, can tolerate in silence this madman in the White House that maybe many of them actually voted for. Dimitri, you're a Canadian. You worked in the United States. How can you explain that there's no massive oh yeah, there's the No Kings rallies. Okay, fine. Where are they today? Where are they going to be tomorrow? And where is the rest of America? Dimitri, I just can't get it through my head as an American how anybody in that country, other than the absolutely illiterate MAGA people, can think that this guy's doing any good. What are your thoughts?
I ask myself that question every day. Regis. I don't understand, like that when I see these favorability ratings and they seem to show that somewhere around 35% of Americans still have a favorable opinion of Donald Trump, I'm flabbergasted. I can't explain it. And it's not, sadly, only in the United States that you find people supporting Trump. You find Trump supporters around the world. He's wildly popular, apparently, in Israel. And even in Canada, there's a significant percentage of the population. I wouldn't say it's as high as 35%. At this stage, it might be 15, 20%. But even there, this country I come from, there's significant support for Donald Trump. It's a sickness. That's all I can tell you. It's a mental illness. Supporting this man at this stage, it absolutely blows me away. Even if you support the sort of core policies of the Trump White House, okay? So what are the core policies? We're going to deport all these immigrants. We are going to drastically increase military spending. We're going to drill, baby, drill. We are going to gut regulations, especially environmental regulations. We're going to lower taxes on the wealthy, and a few other, policy planks. So let's say 7, 8 of the core themes. Let's suppose you support all of those things. Still, how can you support Trump given the way that he behaves? He's a clown. He's a buffoon. He is turning the United States into a laughingstock. He is extremely volatile, a megalomaniac. Have you ever heard a human being say, Regis, I'm not just talking about a leader of a country, any human being ever say, I deserve to win the Nobel Peace Prize 7 times, or even once? Have you ever heard a human being, do you know somebody, or have you seen somebody in the media say, I should win the Nobel Peace Prize, they should give me the Nobel Peace Prize? The president of the United States has said this repeatedly, and he even said, I deserve it 7 times because I stopped 7 wars. He's nuts. He's insane. He's a complete bonkers, off your rocker lunatic. So even if you accept his core policy prescriptions and you're wildly enthusiastic about them, why don't you find some other candidate to pursue that agenda? Why would you choose this lunatic? I mean, I just don't understand how anybody at this stage could support this man.
Dimitri, I'm scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I want to, at this point, encourage everybody that's watching this to, if they haven't already subscribed to your Substack channel, to do that. It's reasontoresist.substack.com. Dimitri stands alone, I believe, in my mind, of a journalist. And many of these analysts that everybody's tuning into every day are not journalists. They do not go to where it's happening. They don't go to Palestine. They don't go to Syria. They don't go to Iran. They don't go to Lebanon. And Dmitry Lascaris, for that reason, in my mind, stands head and shoulders over the rest of them. It would do you well to subscribe, please, to his Reason to Resist Substack channel. Now, Dmitry, I want to finish on this last note. Again, Donald Trump. He's been claiming he's going to end the war in Ukraine in the first 24 hours when he got back in the White House. But he hasn't done it. Dmitry, as I sit here and I'm in Crimea, in Yalta, the Russian Federation, obviously I follow this every day. Whenever there's news, whether it's from Russian state media or Russian ministries or from the United States, I think people here cannot understand why Russia is dealing with Donald Trump. They talk about the Alaska agreement. To me, that's a load of, you know what, horse manure. There wasn't any agreement there. Trump didn't agree to anything. And then you have Kushner and Witkoff coming here to meet with Kirill Dmitriev, Russia's primary Western expert, economic guy. Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister. Nobody near him anywhere in the world. He's not involved with Rubio or anybody else that we know of publicly what's going on. Taking into consideration what we've been talking about now, Trump and Iran, why would anybody in Russia, I can understand, Dmitry, keep talking to him. It doesn't do any harm to keep talking. Why would anybody trust him?
Excellent question, Regis. I've given a lot of thought to this myself. It's really hard to believe that a man of Vladimir Putin's sophistication believes that Donald Trump can be counted upon to respect the deal or do a peace deal. Now, our mutual friend, John Helmer, has a theory, which is plausible. I don't know if this is the actual reason for President Putin continuing to engage through this sycophant, this Trump sycophant, Kirill Dmitriev, because that's what he is. He says nothing but wonderful things about Trump. He's constantly stroking Donald Trump's ego and Melania Trump's ego, and never utters a peep of criticism of anything that they do. Why he's using him to communicate with Trump, John, who does a much better job of explaining his views about this than I can, says that he believes President Putin thinks that the best way to end the war is to bribe Donald Trump and members of the Trump family, and that eventually these bribes will pay off by Trump basically writing off Ukraine and saying we're no longer going to support this war, nor are we going to support the Europeans who are supplying Ukraine's military. Now, this is plausible because it is clear that the Trump family is extraordinarily corrupt. It is also clear that Trump is not a huge fan of NATO, although I don't think he's nearly as hostile to NATO as people think. But, he has been critical of NATO and NATO members in ways that other presidents haven't been. So it's possible that President Putin actually thinks that you can bribe this man. And hey, if bribing him means you're going to save, thousands of Russian lives, and a lot of destruction will be prevented by bringing the war to an early end. Hey man, knock yourself out. I think that that's probably the right thing to do. But I didn't see no evidence until now that strategy, if that is in fact the strategy that the Russian government is pursuing, is working, because the war is escalating. It's not de-escalating. I could believe that this is an effective strategy if the war was de-intensifying and they were making more progress on negotiations. But Zelensky, this terrorist, this fascist terrorist, is continues to take a maximalist position, continues to demand, Russia's complete withdrawal from all of the areas that used to form part of Ukraine, including the part you're in, Crimea, continues to demand reparations from Russia, continues to say that Vladimir Putin has to be held accountable for what he alleges are crimes committed against Ukraine. And meanwhile, the drone attacks on Russia are escalating. They're becoming more effective. They're going deeper and deeper into Russia. They're larger scale. They were even attacking the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. So there's absolutely no evidence that this strategy, if in fact it is being pursued by the Russian government, is effective. If anything, it is, as I said, the war is heading in the opposite direction, in the direction of escalation. So by now, one would have thought that if that were the strategy of Vladimir Putin, he would have abandoned it. I don't know. Maybe Kirill Dmitriev is saying things in the president's ear, which are causing him to have hope that one day soon this strategy is going to yield some fruit. I don't know, but I don't think that I think it's quite clear that Donald Trump has no interest in bringing an end to the war in Ukraine, never was serious about bringing an end to the war in Ukraine, and wants to destroy Russia, just like he wants to destroy Iran. Donald Trump's singular objective is to destroy anything and anyone who stands in the way of U.S. hegemony. As simple as that. Whether it's the Palestinians, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Iran, whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Cuba. Look what he's doing to these countries. This is who the man is.
Dimitri, I want to finish on this note to clarify something. This is not Zelensky that's doing this. It's not Ukraine. It always has been the United States and primarily the UK that are supporting this. It makes my blood boil when people say the West or the people say Zelensky or Ukraine. It needs to be said, it's the same thing with Israel. Without the United States pumping billions of dollars into Ukraine, now with the wink, wink, oh, we're not going to send weapons to Ukraine directly anymore. We're going to sell them to Europe so Europe can send them to Zelensky. And it isn't Zelensky or any of his Nazi regime that can program those drones and could guide them deep into Russia without United States satellite reconnaissance, specifically. Yeah, we're having problems again.
Did I freeze or did you freeze?
I froze. I just wanted to make it clear that it's the United States of America backing both Israel and Ukraine for the same purposes, to destroy Iran and to destroy the Russian Federation. Dimitri, thanks so much for coming back on the show. It's always great to have you. And as I said before, you don't have any equals anywhere on the blogosphere. Again, I'm scrolling your Reason to Resist Substack. I want to encourage people to go and subscribe and to spread to all of your circle of people Dimitri's daily reports. He stands alone. Dimitri, thank you so much. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much for the very kind words. Regis, always a pleasure.